taget vest på.
Det er dejligt at komme til Jylland.
Vi har fået en invitation.
Ja, vi har søgt en invitation, vil jeg også sige.
Nå, har vi det?
Ja.
Ja, vi er jo taget til Horsens for at spore os ind på, hvad oprykkerklubben er for en størrelse.
Ja.
Og vi er ved at være i slutningen af transfervinduet.
Der er gode 10 dage tilbage, ikke?
Ja, der er ikke så mange dage tilbage. Og så kan vi endelig få et unikt indblik i, hvad en Superliga-klub gør sig i, netop i transfervinduet. Det glæder vi os til. Men der er lige en detalje den her gang. Og det er, at vi kommer til at gøre interviewet på engelsk. Fordi vi har en vis herre med i programmet. And that gentleman is you, Bill Binnie. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Peter.
Or do you prefer your birth name?
No, just call me Bill.
Yeah, okay, cool. Let's do that.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Our pleasure.
You're the chairman of the board and the majority shareholder of AC Horsens.
Yes, I am.
Yeah. But Bill, it's not only you who are willing to answer our question today. And Esben Hansen, I'm looking at you. Nice to have you in our program.
Nice to see you guys.
You're the sporting director of AC Horsens. And I have to understand your kind of relationship between you guys, because you've been in Horsens in 2 years together, 2.5 years. Are you good pals, or are you working wives, or father and son in that term?
I don't know if that's a question, but
No, it's a fact.
I think that here at Horsens, I spend a lot of time here, and I work most closely with Esben, but also with our CFO, Nikolai, and our CEO, who came from Midtjylland. So I spend a lot of time talking to those three people about different things in the organization. Esben and I typically talk daily, in some cases multiple times during the day.
And how do you see Bill?
I see him as a very engaged owner who's very interested in the football club. And like he said, we talk daily, and when you talk daily over a couple of years, you get a close relationship.
You were the one hiring Esben.
Yes.
How did you connect?
So when we bought the club, Christian Nielsen, who was the CEO here as well as the sports chief, we actually had another fellow who left shortly thereafter, but Christian was the sports chief, and we determined that we wanted to have a standalone position that was not related to the CEO, and we started our review process. I made the early mistake of hiring a coach before I hired a sports chief. Nonetheless, you learn that later in life that's probably not the right way to do it. But in any case, we hired Esben after interviewing a number of people.
You're referring to Martin Redaktør back then, right?
So and then I'd hired Martin as head coach beforehand.
And we are getting to know AC Horsens very well today. And with me, I have Farzam Abolhosseini. My name is Peter, and welcome to Transfer Guru.
In English this time.
In English. Bill, before we talk about football, I need to understand how you see the place you've invested in. And I know you don't like the term investment, and we are going to get into that a bit later. But let me start with a slightly strange question. If Horsens was an American city, which city would it be?
Oh, that's a good question. Horsens would be in the heartland of America. It would be in Ohio, Indiana. It'd be something like Cincinnati, which represents really the heartland of the United States. It's not on the East Coast. It's not on the West Coast. It's not Aarhus or even Aalborg. It's not Copenhagen, certainly. It's something different in its own. And I've gotten to know Denmark quite well. Obviously, you can't work in the football business in Denmark and not go from Vendsyssel to Esbjerg to Copenhagen and not learn something in between. And ironically, this summer, I vacationed in Kolding, of all things. But I've gotten to know Denmark reasonably well, and I think that someplace in Ohio or Indiana is probably the closest to describing how Horsens would fit in the States.
How much do you visit Denmark? How often are you in the club?
Once or twice a month, anywhere from 3 or 4 days to a week. The longest I've been here is probably 2 weeks. But for instance, I'm here till the end of August, and then I'll be back for the Copenhagen game on the 8th, 9th, 10th of September.
What was your first impression of Horsens when you came here?
My first impression was great bones, great opportunity, something that had some great elements. It had an interesting history as a football club. It had been a Super League team. It was in Nordic Bet when we showed up, but had the ability to get there. More importantly, had good infrastructure in terms of land, stadium, and a lot of enthusiastic people here in the community that were open-minded about having a new investor.
And that actually leads us up to an obvious question. You like Horsens as a city, but why AC Horsens? Why did you invest in this club?
So it wasn't an accident. 5 years earlier, we had started a process. We looked at clubs first in Scotland, and then in England. We looked at Derby in England, well known. BBC followed us when Wayne Rooney was running it. And then from there, that didn't work out for many reasons. From there, we looked at Dijon, we looked at Cannes, we looked at Versailles in France. We looked at a few clubs elsewhere, focused quite heavily on Stabæk in Norway, in the Oslo area. And in doing that, we learned something at every turn. And one of the things we learned is we needed a way to find and develop young players. So as we had this odyssey of a search and looking for a team to invest in, my sons were a big part of that. My two sons, who one is now 34, the other one is 29. My youngest worked at the San Francisco 49ers, the football club, American football club, and was heavily involved in sports. My other son is heavily involved in other projects and project management, Adam. While we were looking for teams, we were able to study teams, but also figure out how do we find young players. And we became committed to developing a scouting network. So today, I would think that we have among one of the most extensive scouting networks in the world for a team of our size. We have something close to 60 scouts worldwide in almost 20 different countries, working singularly for Horsens, looking at players from the Faroe Islands to Ghana, to Kenya, all the way up to Finland. We principally focus in the Scandinavian area as well as in the Africas, approximately 12 countries in Africa. And to give you an idea, the team that we fielded last week, of the 11 players on the team, they were from 11 different countries. And that's something that it just happened because of the breadth of our scouting, but also I think we've spent a lot of time in integrating these players as well.
But still, why Horsens? How could they fulfill that globally idea that you got?
Well, I think that the one thing that's not easily understood in Denmark is how attractive the Danish sports market is in terms of its scale and its size, its affordability to other investors, especially sports investors. I mean, the scale of investing in a club in Denmark, for instance, compared to doing it in the States, is apples and peaches. So, for instance, this past summer, they started the Boston women's soccer team, football team, in Boston, city of Boston. It was a $250 million US dollar investment. So do that, that's, what is that, 1.5 billion kroner for just the women's team, never played a game. That was the check you had to write just to start. And they have, on top of that, build a stadium, hire staff, and so forth. So that's the scale of what it takes to buy or build just a women's team in America. So when you look at that women's team is more valuable than probably any team here in Copenhagen, and then including a club in Copenhagen or two. When you look at those comparisons, it gives you an understanding of the affordability and the attractiveness. Now, when we looked at Horsens, what did we see? We saw a company or a team that had no debt. It had a good balance sheet. It didn't have massive losses. It had the ability to make changes. It had a board that welcomed us. Klaus Olsen was the chairman of the board. He was terrific. He was accommodating. He was supportive. He worked with us as we looked and understood the club. It has terrific infrastructure. Before this podcast, we took you out to the land and showed you the opportunity we saw to build practice fields and so forth. I think we had the bones of a good organization and the opportunity to build something here in a community that was willing to talk to us.
A lot of Danish football supporters think about why you chose Horsens out of all these teams that are in Denmark. They were not even playing in Superligaen. how come this is the club that you chose?
Well, that's a good question.
And why in Jylland? You could have taken one of the clubs in close to the capital, for instance.
We could have.
Or in the capital.
Yeah.
We might have saved ourselves a lot of travel time. I'll admit that. I can't say that I understood the nuance and difference between Jutland and Zealand at the time. I can honestly put hand on heart and say that I didn't know the difference. We have come to love Jutland and Horsens in general. The team and the community has been incredibly supportive to us. We had a meeting this morning with the mayor on various things to do here at the stadium, and the organization and the community and the commune get along great. I think that the people of Horsens are glad to see our investment. They have, by and large, been very supportive of what we've tried to do. And I think that they have an appetite to see us improve. And there are other teams in Denmark, I'm not sure that we would say that. So, for instance, one of the reasons we didn't like Derby is we no sooner expressed an interest, and the next thing you know, we had hundreds of English supporters in our offices in Boston telling us what to do with the team. That's not going to work out. You know, I mean, there is one way to do it, and then there's another. And we knew we were going to make changes here. We knew things would evolve, and we wanted the freedom, the license, the authority to do it with support from a community, not the opposite.
I'd like to know, Esben, how is it for you to have an owner that is an American guy?
Well, I don't really think about it from a nationality standpoint, but it's very, very nice to have both Bill, Adam, and Colin, who are extremely involved and engaged. So, like we talked about previously, I have a lot of opportunity to have conversations with them on a daily basis. So we're always aligned on where we're going. So I think we have a very good working relationship.
You have to say that he's your boss, right? And he's sitting right
Sure. Sure. But I think the good thing, I think it's very true.
Yeah. Okay. Esben, when you came into this project, half a year after Bill and your sons came to AC Horsens, what did they say to you that they wanted AC Horsens to become?
Well, I think we spent together before we decided jointly that I should be the new sporting director. I think we spent a good 20 hours together, so we had a very good idea on where the club should go and what we wanted to do, and I had some common ground and some common denominators on how we wanted to evolve the club. So I think we want a club to always develop. We have a focus on youth, and we have a focus on being excellent, as good as we can be.
Did you ever consider to hire a sporting director that wasn't Danish? Why not?
There's a reality to being in the Danish market, sports market. You have to have a lot of nuance, a lot of experience, a lot of technical expertise that comes with decades of experience. We did have a Swedish coach when we showed up. And I thought that he was a lovely guy, but his shortcomings in not knowing the Danish leagues to the detail has proven to be correct, that you just need to have lots and lots of experience to do it.
And how did you run into Esben?
We knew of Esben when we were looking at teams. It was one of the names that came up. And another sporting director who we were talking to recommended him from his days at Sønderjyske, and spoke highly of him. So it was a local Danish contact that introduced us.
Is that the same contact that introduced you to Horsens?
No. So my youngest son spoke to the chairman here
By coincidence, or?
No, by intent. They got to talking on the telephone to this moment. I'm not sure who called who first, but it didn't matter. At that point, we were probably talking to 20 teams globally about investing a little bit or a lot. Everybody from, I think we talked to everybody from the Glasgow Rangers to Dijon, to Derby, to Cannes, to Versailles, to Stabæk. We were talking to all of them and many other teams besides, because of two things. One, we had capital and understood sports. We'd been in sports for many years. And then the other is that we had the scouting network that was intriguing when we talked to teams. And we said, yes, we've got the ability to deliver young players to you.
So it sounds like that AC Horsens also needed you to come in.
For sure.
So
I just still don't get the connection. How did it start? How did it start from the very, very beginning?
So I know half a dozen teams right now in Denmark that are looking for capital.
Okay. So there's some
So there is a
investors.
underground network of CEOs and chairmen that are out talking to people, raising money, and so forth. And obviously, I can't say their names because I'd be breaching a confidentiality. But there is a community out there that is actively raising capital. It is the dirty secret of sports is they need capital. I have lots of opinions about how it could be done better, but it's only my opinion, and I don't have license or authority yet to comment on the Danish program. But there are many things I see that I think could be improved dramatically. And it would take, it's a whole different podcast probably to describe, but it could be, think about the Danish system as it exists now.
With the 12 teams.
With 12 teams, or whether it's 12 or 14 or 6, whatever it is, but it's 12 teams now. But the biggest teams compete against the smallest communities, and they do so equally. And in fact, quite the opposite. The biggest teams get the vast majority of the television revenue.
Yeah.
And these small teams, how are they supposed to compete? How does it work? I don't think it's discussed enough in Europe, okay? And it should be discussed, because if you say, how does it work in America? Well, the smallest teams in America can compete against the biggest cities in America. So you can get the Green Bay Packers, a tiny community by any measure. Even in Europe, the Green Bay Packers can compete against New York or Miami. And they do it through the way the league is structured. Everybody's equal. You know, it's actually quite socialist, if you want to know the truth, and quite uncapitalist. Everybody's equal, things are shared, there's a draft. If you do well one year, you get to pick last, et cetera, et cetera. There's all sorts of rules. In Europe, it's quite the opposite. The biggest teams get most of the TV revenue. Kind of crazy, okay? And the smallest teams don't. The biggest teams have the biggest budget to buy the best players, including you're allowed to buy players from your competitors, you know, which is kind of crazy.
But it's because they're first choice for the TV with the biggest team.
But
Don't you think that's fair? Or?
No, because if you take the other side away, there's no game to watch.
But do you think the structure here in Europe should learn something from the American sport?
I don't know about that. That's a good question. That's a very good, debatable question. I'm not saying that the American system is correct. However, I think one of the questions that should be asked by Denmark and Europe in general is, why do so many Americans come to Europe to buy a sports franchise? What is going on? And I think the answer is affordability. And I think that that's one of the reasons, you know, that you can invest and own a team in Denmark that gets to play in Europe for 50 million euros. Okay? The nearest equivalent team is an MLS team in the States is 1.1 billion euros or dollars.
It's quite different.
It's dramatically different. And what does that mean? Well, it means that eventually those MLS teams will get better players, better equipment, better this, better that. It will happen over time, I predict. It may take 5 years, 10 years. But over time, I think that the healthy leagues will probably end up looking more like the US leagues. That's my prediction.
Esben, you're sitting in a position where you have a word in Danish football. Are you working against this, that the major teams, they get more money compared to the smaller?
No, I think like Bill said initially, we're not in a position to work against anything. And right now we're just competing as best as we can. And you know, it's been a big step for us to reach the Superliga and go up with basically the same team as we had last year and compete. And right now we're seeing that we can do it, and that's, you know, what we focus on. The other things are, you know, at a higher political level than we have to focus too much on right now.
That's true. I don't expect to change it, but that doesn't mean it's not an observation to be discussed. Okay, I think that's the interesting thing from my standpoint. But from our standpoint, we look at it as an opportunity. We look at it as an opportunity where we can spend money in scouting, where we can invest for the long term. We're not burdened by having to break even today or tomorrow, and that we can take the long-term view to build excellence. That's how I view it.
So a follow-up question is, how long a time would you like to do that in AC Horsens before you see? I don't know what the ambitions are. You can tell us that afterwards.
We don't have a time frame in the traditional sense. No, we never do. We have many investments in our family's portfolio that we've owned for 20, 30, 40 years. If you walk around our hallway in our investment company in the States, you'll meet many people that are there 15, 20, 25, 30 years. Even we just had one employee retire after 43 years of working at our firm. So we take an enormously long-term view to our investments, and I would expect Horsens is no different. We'll be here for a very long time.
Can you promise that? Although that you're having a revenue that might not be as good as with green numbers.
Yeah, I think that's the misnomer.
Black numbers.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
But we're not in the green. But let's take a small organization like Nordsjælland, who made 60+ million euros in the last year or two. Small organizations in Denmark have proven again and again they can be financially healthy. And that will, we hope, happen to us as well if we do our job correctly, which is put a good product on the field, develop players correctly, scout correctly, bring in the right young talent. If we put all those pieces together, I'm completely convinced that we'll do well. And let's take our track record. We bought the team, we finished 8th. There was really nothing we can do. We were a passenger on the bus the first few months. Okay? The next year we finished 3rd. Okay? The next year we finished 2nd and got promoted. The first year that we came here, our transfer revenue was 0. This past year, the first year we had control, it was 2.5 million euros. This past year, it'll be better than 5 million euros. In other words, we've doubled each of those years. We've improved our performance in the things that matter, and largely because of Esben and his skill set, to his credit. So we see a trend that's going in the right direction. And sitting here today, we've made our first objective and goal, which was to get the Super League. And I would say we've probably done that a year ahead of time. If you take our stadium audience is up 50%, maybe even more than that, from the day that we bought the club. And in fact, in the last few games, when we were in b.la League, our stadium was sold out, and it was super exciting. And we're doing well as well in Super League, and we expect to do better again in our fan base as it continues to grow. So on almost every metric that you look at, we see growth, we see prospects going up. We're pleased.
So the millions that you lost during this period doesn't hurt you or doesn't make a difference?
And why is that? Because your career has been assessing businesses. So you also know that when you have lost 20 million euros over the last 2 years, and you still know it doesn't bother you.
Not a lick.
Really?
Not a lick.
And why is that?
Because I don't care.
You don't care?
I'm competing.
You're competing. Towards what?
I promise
when
you,
are you,
in 5 years or 10 years, when you look back at the investment that we've made, and somebody said, oh, he invested 10, 20, 30 million euros in the team, and the team is worth many times that, you know what people will say? It was always easy. He knew what he was doing. That was easy. He invested 10 years ago. He knew what he was doing.
Does he know what he's doing, Esben?
I'm sure he knows what he's doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is a good example of we don't view things week to week. We tend to look at things in a longer perspective, and sometimes, you know, I also tell the coaching staff, you know, don't necessarily look at games in 1 or 2 games. You know, let's play 7 or 8 in that season before we know where we are. And I think we will know, just like in the Superliga now, we'll know when we reach the first international break where the season is going. It's the same thing.
I agree.
But aren't there anyone in your family, your wife or somebody saying, hey, how much money are you going to invest in this team before you are making money?
No. It's that simple.
Esben, we have seen that. We have seen before that some foreigners have come to the Superliga and placed a lot of money in different clubs. Esbjerg is one of the examples who is still have a difficult time after some investors came to the club. Why are AC Horsens going to be that club who is going to be a success besides the other
Well, it's hard for me to comment on what other people did, but I can say what we're doing is we're trying to again, we walk the training pitches. We're trying to build the club on the foundation of good infrastructure, and also having a clear strategic plan for what we want to do with the team, and how we're going to be successful in how we're going to play, how the team will look, how the recruitment will go. So I think the simple and boring answer is to try and have a good plan and stick to it and execute on it.
But you don't have a goal. You don't have something you're pointing at and say, we need to go there. You should have a course.
We have a simple goal, and that was to make Super League. And our next goal will be a consistent club in the top 6. And then after that, we'll see where it takes us. But yes, our next series of goals, our internal language we talk to each other about in this hallway, is no ceilings. We don't see any limits. But I'll tell you, I'll give you an example of when you talk about the context of money. Over my investment career, I've had the opportunity to invest in many American sports franchises. And I always focused on the fact that none of them ever made any money. So when I could have bought the Boston Bruins for $30 million in 1989, give or take, today that team is worth probably $3 billion from $30 million. So it's up 100 times. And I was so smart that I didn't invest, losing that opportunity. So before you think I'm brilliant, I'm simply not. I'm an idiot. I could have bought and invested in the Montreal Canadiens. As recently as a few years ago, I could have helped and invested at the New York Islanders for $400 million, which is now probably worth $4 billion. In each case, I lost billions of dollars of opportunity. And in each case, I made the same mistake over and over again, which I focused on the fact that the teams at that particular moment in time didn't make any money. Sports teams, by and large, don't make money, but they appreciate over time because they're franchises, because they have asset value and emotional value that's very rare and very unique. And that's why you see the Real Madrids of the world and the LA Lakers of the world worth billions and billions of dollars, even though they don't make nearly the kind of money that one would think. But they have a certain franchise value that is unique and unique in sports. And the thing that's going on in Denmark is the franchise value of these teams, I would argue, is grossly underrated and understated. And over time, you will see more and more people come in to invest over time.
So the Superliga, in terms of investment, are, from your perspective, undervalued?
Grossly undervalued.
Grossly, okay. Maybe we will see some more investors, and you will get a lot of new writings to do because
you see it in Randers right now. There are some Japanese investors coming in. You see it in you've seen it in there's in Nordsjælland, just to take one for instance. But I'm interested in the part where you say that there is no ceiling in AC Horsens.
That's right.
Your fans, I think that they want to know. Also, fans of other clubs. When do you think you have a club that can compete in the top of the Superliga and might compete for the championship?
So let's talk about no ceilings and what does it mean. So I was a poor kid. My mother was a waitress. My father was a janitor. There was no expectation that I would go to college or university at all. I trained to be a mechanic, and by accident I ended up going to college. Literally, my older brother dragged me into school, and that's how I went to university. And if it wasn't for him, I never would have. There was no expectation that I would succeed. And that was just the way it was in my family. I was the second son in a Scottish culture, which didn't particularly say that they're going to do well, because all the money went to my older brother. That's just the culture I came from. Fast forward to today, when I look at Horsens, I feel a little bit like it's me. Okay, that there are these expectations that Horsens shouldn't do well. There's these expectations that we can't do well here at Horsens. And I totally disagree with that. We have no ceiling. It's only limited by our imagination and by our willingness to work hard. And if we are willing to work hard and continue to hope and dream, I think we will do exceptional things here. Now, does that mean we're going to win the league tomorrow? Of course not. And we may go down before we go back up. But at the end of the day, we will continue to work hard. And I know how exhausting that is to compete against our organizations. when we just keep moving forward at every step. If we continue to focus on the basics, making sure the laundry works, the practice pitches are good, our scouting network works, that we're seeing the right young players and talents, we're bringing them in for trialists and doing all those levels of extraordinary detail that we've talked about before this podcast. If we do all of those things right, over time we will become excellent. And if we become excellent, I think we will be successful.
It sounds like a state of mind that you're transferring from your life and your experience into the heart and the DNA of AC Horsens. Is that correct, Esben? Is that what you see?
Yes, but I don't think, and of course I can't speak for Bill, but I don't think he views this in any different, this particular business in any different way than any other businesses. That the grind is the same, and I think we see that every day, and we try to also from my position to push that down to everybody every day. That if you simply apply a good work ethic and you're serious about what you're doing and you're above average smart, good things can happen to you.
Okay, so let's be a bit detailed about the project. I know that you love details, Bill, and I would love to talk about the Horsens project that you're doing right now. You talked about the long-term perspective, infrastructure has to be increased, and so on. So, Esben, can you tell me what is the project? What are you doing on a daily basis to achieve this excellence level that you need?
Well, one basic things. I think if you look at our football team the other day against Lyngby, we won the game. We played extremely well the first 30 minutes. I think it's some of the best we've seen the team play, and at least in this season, and against like a very, very good opponent. We did very well because we did basic things well. We stuck to the game plan. We ran the meters we were supposed to do. We tactically did what we were supposed to do. We won the duels. At some point, we stopped doing that in the first half, and you got in trouble. And that's a good analogy of how the whole organization should work. That stick to the basic things and just keep developing and keep getting better every day. Then the individuals will also move the collective of the organization. So I think issues that we had 2 years ago are different from issues we have now. And it's if you look at it like a funnel, the problems go from out here and they get into where you talk about nuances. And I think we are in a much more nuanced place now than we were 2 years ago.
And how is it different from 2 years ago to now? What have happened?
Well, a lot of things have dramatically happened. Is that everybody in the club now understands the way we want to work, and they understand the strategic mindset of the club, and they when you do that and you don't have to negotiate with yourself all the time, things become easier, and you get more fluent in the way you work.
So to give you an example, 4 players, each with a focus. Mikhail Kupi in our defense comes out of our academy. He was specific focus. He's a very, very young player, one of the youngest central defenders in all of the Super League, doing great. I predict he will be a great player in these coming years. It took patience, and it took a focus and commitment by the coaches to train him and play him. Number 1. Number 2, you look at Moro, our central defender, a great midfielder, and I think will be a very, very dominant midfielder in the coming years, both here in this league and in others when he moves on, which he inevitably will. Has the potential to be, if not the best midfielder in the league, certainly one of them. Came out directly out of our scouting operation, was a trialist here and on their U19 program. The coaching staff at the time was relatively not unaware, but uninterested in him. Today, that is a completely different situation. Yamaru, our young winger, we had to give him time on task. We had to give him game minutes for him to develop, and we know that. Many of these young players need 700-800 minutes. So how many games is that? 8-9 games where they have to get out there just to see the speed, and we know that that's the case. And it takes a brave organization and a commitment by the coaches to play that player even though you know he's going to get a red card or maybe a yellow or do something stupid, okay? But those 3 players are perfect examples of 18, 19, 20-year-old players going to make a difference, but playing at a very high level. And we had, the organization had the bravery to play them and train them in real time. And then you have the goal by Adrian Justensen, who scored the winning goal. He was exactly hired, exactly, for that goal in that location off a set piece, right?
He did it to us a couple of times. It was hurtful. You know? Yeah.
And then you brought him in.
And then we had the resources to say, we'll have him for exactly that situation. So there's a case in point where that game went to a game plan. Now, we didn't like many of the minutes of the game when we were ahead and so forth, and they didn't play particularly well in the lead. That's a whole different conversation of concentration and so forth. But if you look at that first 15 minutes or 20 minutes of how we played, and you look at how Adrian scored that goal, those are exactly what our strategies are on the field.
So a strategy is, you say, bravery, but you also trust in your organization and you trust on those players who are in your team.
Yes, but Esben and others in our organization, including myself, have demanded that we play young, have demanded that we develop, have demanded that we coach these kids when we see raw talent. And that's why when you go up and down this hallway, our organization isn't just a football club. We house kids, we teach them English, we teach them, integrate them into the Danish programs. We bring in coaches to coach them. It's not an accident, it's a lot of work, a lot of things happening behind the scenes. It takes time to develop and do. But I think we are doing one of the hardest things to do in sports, and that is finding young, capable football players and developing them.
One thing is finding them, but how should I recognize that I'm watching Horsens if I can't see the badge? How can I see that this is Horsens, they play like that, they need those players?
The identity.
Style of play identity, is that what you're
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay. No, but I think we want to be a dynamic team. We want to be we have some simple rules to live by. We want to be able to run more than the opponent, and you can say that's a simple thing to say, but it's incredibly hard to. And there's a lot of different ways you can attack that, and it requires a good system to make sure that the players are always able to do that. So we have some simple rules we live by, and making things simple can be incredibly difficult, right? So I think we want to see a dynamic team with young players that are brave. I think that's another good word to live by.
So let me give you a different wrinkle. I don't care what our style of play is, okay? What I care about is getting great players. So let's say you had 2 great offensive players this week, this year, and you've got them for 2 years. Are you going to play a defensive team and be defensive, or are you going to change your style of play? Let's say you're going to get 3 great defensemen or a great midfielder. Are you going to ignore them, or are you going to understand them and play to them and their strengths? So depending on the groceries that show up, you adjust. That's what great coaches do. Now, you try to maximize each player and so on, but sometimes you end up with a great offensive situation or defensive situation. We have hardly given up any goals in the last 15 games. I think it's less than 1 on average. Terrific defensive situation. It's not where we wanted to be. It's just how things ended up. We have a young team, but we have been a particularly good defensive team, and that's been one of our strengths. And now we're working on the other side. But you have to take what you have and eat the meal that the groceries are giving you. If it's springtime, eat the peas. Okay.
Yeah, and I also think that the coaching staff this is where they're experts. So they need a certain amount of or a big amount of autonomy to do their magic. But I think you need, or at least we do as a club, also to tie everything into scouting, into performance, and how we eventually look on the pitch. We need a system of how we want to do things so it doesn't shift so much, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because when we talked with Mads Asen in Viborg, he told us that the club,
80% of
yeah,
the clubs.
the 80% of the style of play is belonging to the club. While here it sounds like that you have adjustment, but you also have the freedom for the coach.
We haven't put percentages on it, but I think we have some things that we want to live by that is a club decision, because I think at the end of the day that also makes it easier for the coaching staff to know what how they are viewed and how we assess them. We like I said, we have some simple rules to live by, and then there's a lot of space to decide how that's done, technically on the pitch and on training.
For example,
Let me hear that. What are the rules?
We want to be among the youngest teams in the league. We want to be among the most kilometers or distance miles run per game in the league. Okay, we want to be among the fastest in the league. We expect all of those. We will probably have the most yellow cards in the league. We'll probably make the most mistakes in the league. Okay, why? Because we are willing to live with the youngest players in the league. Now, you won't see us with 3 attackers, all 35 years old or 29 years old, and 4 defensemen that are of equal age. No, you'll see young people. There'll be an older, mature player alongside them. We understand that. But at the end of the day, we want to play young, attack young, and be aggressive. That's the consistent pattern. Now, the team structure may change from 4-4-1 or 4-3-2, whatever, as the coaches make decisions. But we don't feel, at least at this stage in our development as an organization, that we have one place and one way we have to play. This is not Italy 1988. It's just not. 5 guys in the back.
So we know that you have the capacity to pay a lot of money for a player if you wanted that.
Isn't that good?
Yeah, it's nice. So
wouldn't you hate that if you're the other team?
Yeah,
we love that.
Yeah, but how come that we haven't seen those spectacular transfers this summer? Because you've had the chance, and you still have it. I know there's 10 days left, but you've had the chance to make some major adjustments if you wanted that. But we haven't seen those crazy signings this summer that you might see.
I think a couple of things. I think we had a good plan that we wanted to execute, and until today we brought in 4 guys for the first team. We said at the beginning we would probably be around 4 or 5, so that's a little boring to be on time for that. And I think like we talked about, we want to invest. We've invested heavily in a 16-year-old player that we signed today, because we think that we believe to our core that the best players we'll get are the ones that come at a young age and that we develop. I'm not smart enough to sign a spectacular player for 1.5 million euros at 27 that is just brilliant, because his trajectory in life doesn't necessarily fit with playing in AC Horsens. Yet maybe it comes, but like I said, if it does, it does. But right now, getting the best possible players, we believe, are getting them young and developing them.
So the ambitions for this season isn't. I heard you say that if we go down, we go down. It doesn't make a difference.
I'm old enough to know you trip and fall, you crash. I'm old enough to know that.
And that's okay with you.
But you can prevent it, right? You can use the money to prevent the fall.
No. We talked about this. The S&P 500, the 500 biggest companies in the world 100 years ago. If you look at those 500 companies today, how many still exist? These were the 500 biggest, healthiest companies with the most money, the most market share, the smartest people 100 years ago. Today, of those 500, 10
are left.
Okay, 490 failed. So no, the most money and the smartest people don't succeed all the time. That's not the recipe. It's never, ever about the money. We talked about this earlier as well, before this podcast. That's your view. It isn't about the money. It's about the passion, the hard work, and whether you get it right. So I often talk about the 2 hardest things to do in business. The first is to get strangers to give you money. It's the hardest thing to actually do in business. To either get a bank to give you a loan or an investor to invest in your company, or for you to get the capital to start an entity. Anybody who's listening to this, if you ever try to buy a house or start a business, you know how hard it is to get that initial amount of money. But in our job, the second hardest thing is to know where to spend the money. Okay, who and where do you spend the money? If you have X amount of money, what do you do with it? We feel passionately that the right thing to do is to buy the $1 million 16-year-old, not the $1 million 26-year-old or 32-year-old. We feel that passionately. And if you look at who we have over the years signed, some of the biggest teams in the world we are competing against. So the young 16-year-old that we signed this morning, a top 10 team in the world was after that player. We were able to get him because we can appeal to his sense of development and growth, which we can give to people. We can give to young players. That's a big selling feature of who we are. We're going to have some of the most exciting young players in the world will play here at Horsens over the next 10 years. That's one of our focuses. Let's see how we do.
Okay, I have to talk about the promotion that shouldn't have happened if we go back to March, right? Because I found out that you take 24 points from the final 10 matches and get promoted.
For the second time in Horsens history.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And at the time at March, it looked terrible. At that point, if your goal back then was to get promoted, David Nielsen had just left as a head coach. I need to know what happened back then that you are here today in the Danish Superliga.
We won more games than we lost.
Exactly.
Really?
But what,
On to Cincinnati.
you had to change something, right?
Yeah, but yes. I think it was at that time it got very clear to people. Coaching staff was brilliant, players were brilliant. Got very clear for them that we were looking at things in a bigger picture. So they did very, very well. It was like a moment in time where the strategy clicked, and you'll have these moments in time where you go a step up, and that was definitely one of those. So the way that they worked on a daily basis was just brilliant from basically overnight, and then over time it was you saw the results, and nobody could have predicted that the results would have been like they ended up, of course.
Do you regret you went out and said that promotion was no more a goal? Or did it actually help you to get promoted because people might loosen up?
Relax, baby.
Yeah. We'll make
So here's an observation. Let me back up and see if I can't try to explain my observation in my role as chairman of this and Esben's role as sports chief. So when we first initially invested in the team, we hired a terrific footballer and coach, Martin Rethoff. He did a brilliant job here for us in many, many ways, and he professionalized from where we were to his involvement. He brought a sense of competitiveness that simply didn't exist, and we are incredibly grateful. And I think that Martin and his job he's doing now at Vidor is an example of he's a very good coach, and he will have a brilliant career in coaching. Then we brought in David Nielsen, and David did something equally fantastic for our organization, is he embraced youth. He embraced the African scouting program. He embraced all of these young kids who were purely in development, and he brought a continuity to say, I'll play young, we'll give you a shot, and so forth. And that helped us enormously. Nicky came along, and we said to him again and again, we want to play young, we want to develop, we want to be in it for the long run. Be brave. And he had the benefit of the foundation of those two other coaches to work on. And as Esben said, it clicked, and it clicked quickly. But the talent was already there. The players were already there, and it fell into place quickly. Now, it's great that it worked out, but we were fully prepared to take another year or two as we succeeded. But in all of the things we were working on internally, we saw the progress. We saw the progress of the interest in teams that were approaching us who wanted to buy our players. We saw the quality of their improvement in the numbers. We saw the development of the Yamarus of the world and the Moros of the world. We saw it all there. We've had some real setbacks, which doesn't get talked about. the Christian Vestergaard, who was going to be the mature player who tragically hurts his leg in the first 25 minutes of playing for us. The Moros of the world, who hurts his foot, 3 months into the season, and he's out for most of this. So we've had some real internal setbacks on players we were really counting on. But at the end of the day, I think what happened is that our strategy of playing young, paying attention to the detail, playing with bravery came through.
But what made it click? You talk about that you got the foundation, you got the quality. What made it click that in March?
The work that was done on the training pitch was at a very, very good level. Suddenly the pieces fell in the right spots.
But you didn't do anything, or is it just because your organization were in the?
I think we had we found ourselves in a position where it was a good occasion to gather the troops and kind of make the strategy even more clear. And then we had a very, very good, Mads Christensen took over in an interim period of 4 or 5 games where he really did a lot of work pushing strategy through with the rest of the coaching staff, which laid the foundation for Nicky to come in, and it's the same guy sitting in the coaching room now, and they've just added to the layers of how they work, and they work very, very well. Monday to Friday is more important than Sunday, right? If you wanna have a good product on Sunday, you need to work well during the week, and that really took a step up when we entered the playoffs in March.
I also think that, as you referenced the other team, Viborg, and their 80% of their commitment was to a strategy. We always had a strategy, we had a commitment, but to push it through the organization, to play young, play brave. We believe in you, Nicky, we believe in you, Mads, we believe in our players. Play them, play the young players, give them a chance. All of that came together in March. And it took a while. By the outside world, by the inside world, it didn't. I don't know that we could have worked any harder or been any faster. And I've heard that repeatedly from lots of pros in the Danish football organizations who will say, we have done it faster than anybody else. And we have done it with not just one player. We're not standing on the shoulders of a 36-year-old player, a 30-year-old player. We're standing on the shoulders of a development program, of a scouting network, of a dozen young players, and some terrific coaches, as well as some mature, established Danish players. It's the combination of all of that. It's not just one thing.
But you said so that Martin Retov and David Nielsen did a fantastic job get you guys to that point of perspective where you had a great strategic foundation. Why didn't you just continue to have them as a first team coach if they did so fantastic job?
So I think that I'll take that responsibility on. I think that in each of those coaches, in their own mindsets, our strategy and their focus wasn't exactly aligned, okay, for different reasons. It doesn't mean that we had arguments in the hallway or anything at all. It's just that when push came to shove, maybe they didn't want to play the 18 or 19-year-old, or maybe they didn't believe that in this particular moment in time, it's going to take setbacks before this player is going to come through. And I think that those were the discussions we had. There was never a time and place where we said, hey, play this player, that player. I don't think that Esben ever did, and I know I don't know enough to do that. But I do know enough to believe in the strategy that we had. I think that in David's case, I think he came to the natural conclusion that he'd rather do something else, that there was somebody who was better aligned to do it. And I think in Martin's case, I think that he didn't want to play as young as we wanted to play. It's that simple. And if you see the team he played last year, they were the oldest in b.la League, and we were among the youngest. And I think that's the only difference. But I think he's a brilliant coach, and I think he will be incredibly successful over time. Like the rest of us, he will take lessons from being with us, and we took lessons in having him here. And I mean that in the most positive of ways. But I'll make no apologies for change. I make no apologies for change.
How's your relationship with him now?
I could see him tomorrow in Copenhagen and we could have a beer. I think it would be incredibly positive. I think both of David and Martin When he got the job at Vidor, I certainly sent him a congratulatory text, and I hear regularly from David. In fact, this past week, we texted back and forth. So we're in touch, and I think it's incredibly positive. As one of my observations of the burden that Esben has had to take on unfairly, I think in the Danish sports media, is this conversation of the conflicts that we've had in this organization. I actually think we have very little. We have a clear strategy. It's just hard to implement and hard to do. And Esben's been responsible for that. And I think that much of the observations been made about him are just daft.
How so?
I think that, Esben, and he's sitting next to me, but I'm happy to say it. He's been involved in bringing Sønderjyske to Super League, and now he's been involved in bringing AC Horsens to Super League. So 2 teams in 3 years. He's helped develop the profile to bring those teams into Super League. I don't think other organizations look at it. Our transfer revenue has doubled each of the years that Esben has been in our organization. And I think that our organization has more young talent on the field today than Horsens has ever had. And I think we've got literally millions and millions of dollars of value in our young players, all developed by Esben and strategized by Esben. That people don't understand or see that that's the part of it that I find unfair.
Did you read the writings?
Sometimes, not always, not all.
Did it affect you?
Did it affect me? No, I don't. I just that part of me is the investor. That part of me is like, I see a stock that's undervalued. Why is it undervalued? The market doesn't believe, but I do believe. I see something that maybe others don't, and I think that's the way I am with Esben at the time. I think that it's no longer the jury is out. I think he's proven himself multiple times at this point on the things that organizations care about, which is what are the players on the field and what are their qualities? What's the performance of the team? And what's the revenue targets that you're delivering into the coffers of the team so that they can be financially successful? And from every single measure, we're getting A+.
You're talking about the alignment that you have to be in words of being a head coach. It sounds like that if you don't agree with the strategic goal that you have, that you can't be a first team coach, because you have to understand the alignment, you have to understand the line that you're, I don't know how to say it. So,
say it in Danish.
Yeah,
no, it's just if you don't follow the strategic way.
Let me say that. So you got these alignment, you got aligned by the club that you made. If you don't follow that, you can't be a first team coach. It sounds like that.
Here at Horsens or in general?
Here in Horsens, because Martin Redaktør didn't play young enough, and that's why he's not here.
But I think it's the same if you talk to Viborg. If you have 80%, let's use that as a simplifying of the situation. If the club wants to have 80% ownership of how the team is going to play, and you have a coach that wants 100% and wants to do something completely different, he's not the right guy. So I think it's not something that's special here. I think that goes for all.
It's not that any of these coaches are good or bad coaches. In fact, both cases, they're excellent coaches. They just weren't the right person for us at that particular moment. Okay? And maybe, shame on us, we were not able to articulate as closely and clearly as we wanted to that coach what we wanted to do the way we can today. But we've only gotten better at that. But
is that because you didn't have enough conversations with them before you hired them, or is that just because you didn't know where you wanted to go strategically?
I think we have today proof of concept. Okay? We can point to Moro, we can point to Yamro, we can point to Tape Chris, we can point to these other young players that we've brought in through our own system and developed them. And we have half a dozen players behind them. We can point to the scouts that come every weekend now from the Bayern Munichs and the other great organizations in football and say, these guys are coming to look at our players. We can do that. We couldn't do that a year ago or 2 years ago. And I think that each year that goes by, we'll get better at that. But it's not to knock those coaches at all. Quite the opposite. I think that those coaches probably saw us do it as well, and now they're convinced. But if you're sitting and you're a coach, and it's Thursday, and you've got to pick your team for the weekend game, you pick the guy who's going to win you the game. You don't pick the guy who we think needs development time. And that's a pure conflict. Today, we can now say we are good enough to invest in that young player, believe in that young player, put in the 700-800 minutes he needs to develop in real time, and see the speed of the game. Tough to do if you're a coach. That's a really dark moment where they sit in a room by themselves and make that call. We understand that.
Yeah. And I think as an organization, we're at a place where we believe that what is good for the club long-term and in a strategic view is also beneficial for winning the game on Sunday, which is a good place to be.
And that goes to the point that I want to go back up to 40,000 feet for your listeners, because this is where I come in. Because we've already talked about the Copenhagens of the world and the other teams in Denmark. So think about our little organization here at Horsens. 3 places to make revenue as an organization like ours. The first is television. The second is the gate, the fan base, the fan experience on the game day. And the third is on transfers or player sales. Okay? Well, the way that football is structured here in Denmark, the biggest teams, the Copenhagens and the Brøndbys, are going to get most of the revenue ad infinitum, and maybe Midtjylland, of course. But my point is that that's very, very hard nut to crack, and you cannot hold your breath waiting for those revenues to come in. You're going to end up with revenues as a 8th, 9th, 10th place team will get. And it is what it is. However unreasonable or unfair I think that is, and however when I point to other healthy leagues in the United States, in my view, one of the reasons that they are worth so much more money is that that doesn't happen. Revenue is spared equally. And I think that's the way it should be, because Copenhagen can't play itself. They need somebody else, okay? And whether that team beats them or not, they still need another team to play, or else there is no TV match to watch. That's why I think the revenue should be split equally on television. But that's not the case. The second is the fans. Our community is 6th biggest city and commune in the country of Denmark, is still a small community of 100,000 people compared to 1+ million people in Copenhagen, and a community much bigger in Aarhus just up the street. So it's very tough to have the same fan experience here in terms of the number of people watching the game. So you cannot count on 2 of the 3 legs of the stool from a revenue model. So then you need to focus on transfers. Okay, on the sale of players. And that means the developing of those players, the playing of those players, and the commitment to those youth, and all of the things that that's involved in. And you need a young group of players that are good enough, first of all, and that's where our scouting comes in. But you also need coaches who believe and want to play those players. And that becomes the leg of the stool that is critical to our organization. We are not a selling club. I hate that expression. Okay, we're not. Okay? We're a development club, and we intend to keep some of these players, and that's the only way that we're going to be able to play in the top 6 consistently, and the only thing that's going to meet our other ambitions to hopefully one day play in Europe. But you have to still have the ability to find young players, develop them, and some of those players do want to move on, and we will see our players, I am sure, go to the top 3 or 4 leagues in the world. I have no doubt in my mind that that will happen.
So time is almost up, but we have to ask this question. You're not a selling club, but are you going to be a buying club this transfer window?
We already are a buying club, just not the players that you think we should buy.
Yeah. Is there going to be some new changes these 10 days that we have left?
Well,
we might throw 1 or 2 offers.
Yeah, we might. But nothing material, because at the end of the day, we believe that what we have and what we've built over the course of the last 18 months to where we are now is very good and has a lot of room still to improve ahead of these guys, both individually and collectively as a football team. And I think we're seeing that on a, if not daily, weekly basis, that they get better and better. So we're not in a spot where we feel the need to go and buy someone to make the team better.
So let's give you 2 examples. First of all, we sit here today in 6th place in Super League, number 1. Number 2, the games that we lost, we each had scoring goals with offsides of a fraction of an inch. in which case we would have 2 points. We would have tied those games. Okay, if we had tied those games, because we had an offside in each by fractions of an inch, we'd be 1 point out of first place in Super League. How are we doing?
Very good.
Exactly. So, and if you look at our team, we're among the youngest in Super League. We have some of the youngest players starting in our team, whether it's Yami on the right wing or Moro in the midfield or Michael Kupi in defense. These are among the youngest players starting in Super League. So we think that our youthful strategy is working. We think that those players are building enormous equity value for themselves as well as our organization. And our performance is okay. And we think it'll only get better.
One of your fans wrote to me that they would like a left-footed left back.
There's a lot of left.
How's that going?
The whole world wants left-footed defenders, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So how's it going with that?
We actually were in deep conversations with a team, made a team offer last week to a fantastic young player. And unfortunately, that player hurt his knee in practice, quite literally, 2 days before signing him. And when it was shared with us and we realized that player cannot pass a medical, we had no choice but to not take that player. So we agree with that, reader. We'd like a left
back.
Well, no, we have a terrific left back now who is doing really well.
Who's right-footed.
Who happens to be right-footed.
But
don't have the left-footed left back.
But Saini's done incredibly well on that position, and if we find the right player for the right profile for the right position, we'll do it. But
do you allow him to break the record if he wanted to?
Oh yes, we talk about it every day. If he found a player tomorrow for 5 million euros that we thought would,
I try not to break the record.
Would he pay 5 million euro if he finds the right one?
Oh yeah,
yeah, and 10 million.
Bill, how much are you ready to pay for a player right now?
I don't know that we have a number. But the challenge is he the right player for us at this time? And that's the open question.
But you're the one approving these transfers, right? How is it?
My job is not to pick the player. My job is to agree on the allocation of resources. I'm involved in the hardest thing to do, or to know what to do in business, which is where to spend the money. Okay. My favorite story is Dwight Eisenhower on D-Day, standing on the shores of England when he saw bomber after bomber and ship after ship and literally hundreds of thousands of men, and a journalist was standing next to him and said, "My God, General, this is incredible. What could you possibly need?" And he said, "I need everything else and then some more." In other words, the man who was sent to liberate the tyranny of the world at the time, he didn't have enough resources. No organization ever has enough resources, and that's why it's so critical to spend those resources carefully and thoughtfully. If I thought that there was one player who had the key to this league or this organization, we would get him. Period. It's that simple. We would get him.
There's no limit.
We have the ability to afford anything that anybody else in this league does. Okay? The surprise for our viewers or your viewers and listeners is that we may not be willing to waste that money. We'd rather build that player rather than spend the money and the time and the energy on that. It's that simple. We believe it's better to grow our players, develop our players, than we'll be able to find some guy who's going to come in and magically transform our team.
How often do you say no to Esben and his...
Very rarely. I can't think of one.
It's Esben who says no.
Really?
Probably true.
Yeah, exactly.
Esben probably says no more than me.
I need to know because it sounds like that the strength in your organization is the alignment, that you know what you want to do. Do you disagree about anything?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Every day.
All the time.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. About what?
No, anything. But like I said, it's not like this anymore. It's not seismic shifts. It's nuances on things that you can talk about and disagree on. And one of Bill's good sayings is that that if someone raises a good argument, you change your mind. And it sounds simple and basic, but sometimes people can get in a bad place because they just stick to their guns and don't listen to what maybe a more experienced or someone else who has another view says. So we argue a lot, or not argue, but we disagree on things, but then we find alignment.
What about when you are selling players? Are you the one saying no, or are you mostly the one saying no? And did you refuse any offers this transfer?
We've refused offers on players. I can't think of offers we haven't refused on almost every player we have.
What kind of amount are we speaking about?
Oh, 7 figures, regularly.
In euros?
And euros, sure. We say.
Have you said no to 7-figure
euros? Absolutely.
Yeah. This summer?
Yes. No problem.
There's your headline.
Yeah.
No, we're not going to say that.
No, but we sold players for 7 figures euros, and we broke our transfer record with Tapper earlier in the summer, and we could have easily done that after him.
Easily
broken a new one, but that's not necessarily the interest.
Yeah, I mean, we could sell 2 players now. 1 or 2 players now and make money and be profitable for the year. It's not our focus. We're investing, your word, for the long term, and we have a strategy that we think will pay off over time. I really believe that. If we're right, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years from now, we'll be a well-respected, consistent top 6 Super League team.
Is that the goal in 5 years?
Yes.
Top 6?
Yes.
When do you think you will win the championship or battle for it?
Who knows for that? That one is hard to predict.
But
I've been to Le Mans 4 times.
You know also that if you want to reach that goal, you really have to invest a lot more than 1.5 million. Because
so could you imagine being in my job, in my role, and sitting in a conference room with a bunch of engineers and said, next year we're going to go out and we're going to beat Porsche, Ferrari, and Audi. I've actually been in this room, okay, at Le Mans. We're going to go do that. What do you think that my colleagues in that conference room said when I said we're going to do that? And I said, oh, by the way, I'm really old. I'm in my 40s. I'm going to be one of the drivers. Okay? We went to Le Mans 4 times. We won it twice. Once we broke down and didn't work out. And the other time was lousy. We came in second in class. Okay? My point is I've seen this movie before. I don't want to say we're going to go out and win the race. That's improbable because there's too many variables. There are too many things that can go right and wrong. More likely wrong than right. Okay, but I do know that it's sport. It's why I do it. Why do I do this when I can do anything else in my life at this point in my life? Because it's what turns me on, what excites me, what gives me the energy. I love working with my 2 sons who are not here in this podcast, but I encourage you to have it with them. It's super fun. We are engaged. We love working with Esben and Nikki and their coaching staff and all the scouts. It's a super interesting way to do. I start my day talking to Nairobi or someone in Scandinavia, as well as here at Horsens. It's a fun way to engage and spend your time.
How much of your time do you spend on Horsens compared to all of the other businesses that you also have? Because you're...
Right. So I have a simple expression. Go ahead.
Which one?
If I'm standing next to you, you must have a problem because my stuff works. I generally am a fireman for business, okay, or for an organization. I go to where the need is. And I don't know where that comes from, probably just experience. But I'm in the media business, I'm in the real estate business, I'm in the financial services business, I'm in a bunch of different things, the golf business, as well as the sports business. And at any given time, there is some emergency or some point of interest or inflection point for the organization that's very important. And I go there. Right now at Horsens, I think we've had a very good 6 or 8 weeks. We're closing out the transfer window. We like what we've done. We're disappointed maybe that we didn't get the left-footed left back. We still have a few weeks to go. But all that aside, we really like the young players that we brought in this window. We don't need any single one of them, but they will add and improve to our organization over time. That's my view of how and where we are now. We have a very stable coaching staff. I think we have a very, very good scouting department that's going and running well. We'll spend more time focused on our U19 program in the fall. But our focus now is to win games and to let the coaches do their thing and see how we do in Super League.
Does the Superliga turn you on that much?
Very much. Very much.
Like you. You also
I love
love
Superliga.
Yeah, you also love
That's just me.
Yeah.
I'm not a wealthy man like Bill.
I don't know that wealth has anything to do with it.
Yes, but Superliga is much better than the MLS, right?
Much better right now.
Yeah, exactly.
How much time do you spend on this club? You didn't answer that question.
Well, it was a full-time job there for about a year.
He was here a lot.
Unfortunately.
You couldn't go home.
No, but it was completely needed, to push the organization through the knothole, and I think now it's better for his blood pressure to come and watch games than
It's a part-time job.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a part-time job, but I think in the beginning, the introduction of quality and the introduction of excellence and a competitive structure and a competitive nature and this drive to win, I think that is imbued through the whole organization now. I think I showed you where we started when I showed up here the first time, and people were in literally one room, one big glass room, the accountants and the staff and the coaching staff, and it was unmanageable and completely unworkable. And it's taken a long time to build these offices out, to build out the practice fields, to improve the coaching offices downstairs in the locker rooms. And we're still many years of work to go before we will be happy with what the project really will be.
So you're not like the other investors from other countries leaving Danish football anytime soon?
No, we're not leaving any. I can't comment on anybody else. As Esben said, that's not my role. But I know that things like this are going to take years and years. And we're fully committed to doing it. And we understand that it's going to be expensive and a lot of money potentially. And we're willing to do that and commit resources. We already have. We also think that over time, financially, this organization will be successful, not unlike many other clubs in Denmark. I point to Nordsjælland as an example of a financially healthy organization. We think that we will also find ourselves there in the coming years.
It's going to be great to follow your development. The time is up, Farzam. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us. And, we would like to visit you again if it's possible.
We'd love to. Let's see how this podcast is edited.
Yeah.
Exactly. how the headlines will be.
No.
Thank you so much.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.